Hello everyone. So in this video, I'll be doing like a quick tutorial on how to use the Raising Creative Kids Volume 1 practical guidebook that I created. And it's a book I created so that parents, teachers can use to nurture emotional intelligence, storytelling, creativity, and critical thinking in their kids or pupils. And I want to ensure that the people who downloaded this practical guide have something that they can watch and they can use as a guide to help them while they use these exercises with their kids. So, but before I go through the exercises one by one, I'll probably just talk about the reason why I created this book. Reason one, about maybe 3 years ago, when my family we experienced a divorce, so it was hard on my kids, and there was a time where we were at home. I would be in the sitting room with them in the living room, and I would want to walk to the kitchen, and it's an open plan design. The sitting room is closed. It's really close to the kitchen. It's not like as if I'm walking from the sitting room to another house. But my kids would become very anxious. They displayed a very high level of anxiety and fear. They were very clingy so those are the kind of things that usually happen when parents get divorced. So I noticed that in them, and I was like, how can I work on this to help them manage the separate homes, being divorced? So that led me to read about parenting. So I went down a rabbit hole of reparenting myself, learning about what they were going through at that point in time. I noticed that they were displaying a very high level of anxiety and fear, and those are emotions. So that kind of led me to start to nurture emotional intelligence in my kids. So that is kind of like a baseline for the first reason, just being able to be a better parent and giving my kids the opportunity to be able to navigate the being in a divorced home, in a separate home. So that was the first reason. The second reason, this happened some years ago. I was with a particular person who is in my inner circle, and we were in the midst of my kids. They were playing, and this particular person tried to catch my son's attention, but my son kind of ignored him. And this person made a particular statement that touched me to my soul, to my bone. And he said this. He said, "Watch your son. There's something wrong with him. He's going to give you problem when he grows up." And I was stunned because I knew exactly what was happening. My little child was lost in his imagination, playing with his toys. And you know how some kids are? They're really engrossed with their toys. They create a different world when they're playing with their toys. Maybe, for example, maybe he's probably in a situation whereby Batman is fighting Godzilla, trying to protect Godzilla from destroying the city. And you know how they're playing with toys. And this particular person in my inner circle did not understand that particular scenario. It's like this particular person had utter disregard for the principles of imagination. And I did not relate with that because, oh, this is my son. No, I did not relate with that. I related with that because I also kind of I experienced that while growing up, when people would be saying things like, "There is something wrong with you. There is something wrong with you." So it's something that usually happens to some certain children because they exhibit high level of imagination. So that is my second reason for nurturing imagination, creating an atmosphere whereby kids are able to develop that imaginative skill that they naturally have. So that's my second reason for creating this document. Then my third reason was a video I came across. I think this was about 2 years ago. This was a video with Gary Vee where a lady came to meet him and asked him a question about raising kids in a digital world.
Can I keep my daughter, 9 years old, away from these dangers from the internet?
Only two things. One, you actually don't let her spend time on it, which, as you know, is very hard because everybody in her world will be on it. Two, and this is the most important, the only way, I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I think about this a lot. This is my number one thing that I'm most passionate about, period, in the end of the world. Number one way to protect the child is to build their self-esteem. When a child is not insecure, they don't succumb to danger. Make sure she's confident about who she is, her brains, isn't overly reliant on how she looks. Build her actual self-esteem, because you're not going to be able to watch her every minute.
No, I can't.
But if you make, I know you do, which is why I'm telling you this, I can sense that you realize it. If you make her confident in who she is, that she's amazing the way she is, she will not succumb to other people, and that is how she will navigate.
So that's the video. And if you notice in the video, the way Gary Vee advised this young lady, he said that she should focus on developing self-awareness. So that is my third reason for creating this document. And if you research on emotional intelligence, level 1 of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. So this reason 3 kind of cemented my first reason for going ahead to develop emotional intelligence. So that's my third reason. Then my fourth reason was also a video I came across on the internet, and this was by I think the CEO of Alibaba, Jack Ma. And in that video, he emphasized the importance of nurturing creativity in our kids in this world where AI is constantly and rapidly advancing.
A teacher should share all the time. A teacher should always expect the other people better than you are. And by the way, education, it's a big challenge now. If we do not change the way we teach, 30 years later we'll be in trouble. Because the way we teach, the thing we teach our kids are the things the past 200 years is knowledge-based. And we cannot teach our kids to compete with machine who is smarter. We have to teach something unique. That is, machine can never catch up with us. In this way, 30 years later, our kids have the chance. I hope I answer your question.
It's a very...
In the video, you would notice that he kept on emphasizing on teaching our kids skills that the machine cannot do. So that led me to focus on creativity and critical thinking. So those 4 reasons, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, creativity, critical thinking, are the reasons that kind of led me to create this document and this book. These are exercises I've been doing with my kids for the past 2 years. I probably started by when they were 4 years old, now they are 6 years old. And I have noticed improvements, and I hope that sharing this with the world would also help other parents and teachers to be able to nurture these skills in the younger generation. So that's my reason for doing and creating this particular book. I have plans in the future to also create volumes 2 and 3. The plan is to create a detailed practical guide that would help the older generation nurture the younger generation to becoming creatives, to becoming polymath, to be able to nurture creativity. So this is volume 1, and I'll put the link in the comments so you can download it. It's for free, but I'll just go through it and explain how to use this practical guide with your kids. So the first thing is on the first page, there is like a rule. It's kind of designed like a game. So you notice that each exercise has like a difficulty level. And at the beginning of the first page, there's a rule that I put there. I said, these exercises should be done in a place filled with love, forgiveness, compassion, and fun. So those are the rules of the game. And if you look at this 4 items, these are the these are kind of items that kind of show how a healthy family environment should be: love, forgiveness, compassion, fun. So when you're doing these exercises with your kids, you don't want to just say, "Hey John, come here, come and do this, check this out, what is this, answer this." No, it should be fun. It should be filled with love. It should be filled with forgiveness. It should be filled with compassion. So that's one thing that you need to abide to if you want to start this exercise. So let's move to exercise 1. Exercise 1, I put it, it's the difficult level is just 1 star, and I called it the emotions game. So one thing I also want to talk about is that all the exercises in volume 1 are based on conversations. So it's based on conversations between the parent and the child, or the teacher and the pupil. So I noticed that to nurture creativity in a child, to nurture creativity, emotional intelligence, is going to be based on conversations with human conversations, having conversations. That's how you nurture it. I don't think we can use technology to nurture these things, but that's another video. So exercise 1, and so exercise 1 starts with basic emotions. So when my children were growing up, I noticed that they could only pick on basic emotions when we first started, and that's happy, sad, surprised, and angry. So those are the 4 emotions that exercise 1 focuses on. So the first page involves you asking your child to recognize these facial expressions. So because if you read about emotional intelligence, the first thing about emotional intelligence is being able to recognize emotions, not just in yourself, but in other people. So that's why exercise 1 is based on recognizing emotions. And these emotions are, like I said, they are the 4 basic emotions that are easy to recognize. Another thing I wanted to point out is that when I started this with my kids, my kids had different emotional vocabulary at the beginning. For example, my son used to refer to happy as nice. My daughter used to refer to happy as awesome. So when you are starting with whatever age your kids are, you should take note of that their emotional vocabulary would likely be different, especially when they start maybe by 3 years old or 4 years old. But as you keep on practicing, they get to understand the emotions better. So exercise 1 just involves showing them this page and asking them to pick this emotion. So what I did in the first page is that the emotions on these children's faces are not really expressive. So sometimes they might make a mistake. If they make a mistake, if your child makes a mistake, it's fine. It's okay. So the next page, you'll notice the emotions are much more expressive. The facial expressions, the eyes are going up, the mouth are open wide. There is a really high animation in their facial expressions. So this also involves showing them this page and asking them to identify each emotion. So again, this is how you teach them how to recognize emotion. So that's exercise 1. And I also noted that even if they get it wrong, is fine. Something to do here as a parent is that whenever you point this book and tell them to identify this emotion, what you can do is that you should also make that emotion on your face. So if for example, you are saying, what emotion is this? You do your face like that so that to just put in some effect. And again, remember, fun. Do it in a funny way. The next page is the lettering, the words. So it's happy, sad, angry, surprised. So it's to also point it to them, face it to them, and tell them to identify it. So now in the previous page, they were identifying facial expressions. But right now what they're doing is that they are identifying the words. So you are building a pattern of not just recognizing facial expression, but actual words, in terms of the English language, the language of writing the emotions down. So again, happy, sad, angry, surprised. Face it to them and ask them to, oh, what is this? What is this? Is this sad? Is this sad? You do a sad face. Is this surprised? You do a surprised face. So you make it fun. So that's it for exercise 1. Now, exercise 2, I call it Tell Me About. In this exercise, it's about storytelling and reflection. So that's something important with building emotional intelligence. You want to be able to, 1, identify the emotion, and 2, be able to reflect. So that's what this exercise is about. Then if you notice that I gave it a 2-star to show that, okay, it's much more difficult. Now, if you are starting this exercise, this program, this book with your child, and you go straight to exercise 2, they might not be able to reflect because they've not learned how to identify. So still based on the 4 major emotions: happy, sad, angry, surprised. Now you want to say you want to take the book and take each emotion and ask your child, tell me about when you felt, and you pick one of the emotion, happy. So for example, your child's name is John. Hey John, can you tell me about a time when you felt happy? Again, in an environment where there's fun, love, forgiveness, compassion. So now what you're doing is you're going to cause your child to reflect, to look inwards. Probably, maybe your child probably tell you a story about maybe sometime in school, or sometime you did something to him that made him happy. Something happened in school that made him sad. Something, a particular toy got spoiled. But so already you are instigating storytelling, you are instigating reflection, and you are instigating emotional connection, emotional relation. So it's also, and I also advise parents that whenever their child is telling about these emotions, they should listen attentively. You should listen attentively. You should show empathy. You should also give support when necessary, especially when the story has been told. You want to say, oh wow, that's so sad. Or you want to show empathy. You want to empathize. You want to show compassion when your child tells you this story. So tell me about it's a very important exercise, and what I like about this exercise is that even without the book, you can do this exercise over the phone. Maybe your child, you pick up the phone and you're talking with your child, and your child says, oh dad, something happened to me in school today that made me very sad. Then you ask, tell me about that thing that happened that made you sad. So already, even without the exercise book, you are instigating emotional connection. You're instigating storytelling. You're instigating reflection. So that's what I like about Tell Me About. It's a very good way to cement emotional development. So it's the same thing for, again, you do it for the 4 emotions and you build on that. Something very important in this exercise, this Tell Me About exercise 2, is that you would switch. Now, what I call a switch is that now it's not the parent asking the child to tell me about something or tell me about a story or a particular occurrence. No, you will switch. So when you switch, you give your child the exercise book and you ask them to ask you the same question. So now let me tell you what you're doing. You're putting them in a position of authority to also investigate your emotional situation. So they could go things like, Daddy, tell me about the time you felt sad. Then as a parent, you think about a story and you also tell the story. And what I always advise is, whenever you're telling your story and you reach this point where you want to say you felt sad, you should also do it on your face. So you kind of connect it with what they learned in exercise 1 about facial expression, emotional recognition. So when you're telling the story, oh, there was a time at work, when I got to the office, my boss was very angry about what I did, and he shouted at me. When he shouted at me, I felt very sad. I could not do my work properly throughout that day because I was just not feeling in the right frame of mind. It was a sad day for me. You want to do your face like just so that they can relate with that story. So that's what I call the section where I call switch. Again, ask them to do this for these 4 emotions to build their emotional vocabulary. And also, it also helps with parent and child bonding. So that's it for exercise 2. Now, exercise 3, I call it tell a story. Now, this is a difficult level of 4 stars. Now, tell a story now involves storytelling. It's a point where your child now starts to become more creative. And when you add emotions to creativity, it's a very good way to tell compelling stories that humans relate to. If you look at all the movies we watch, it touches emotions. If you look at the art that people create, if you look at the music, everything touches your emotions. That's why there's some music that you listen to that makes you feel in a certain way. So those are emotions. That's why a lot of art that is being created is there's an emotional foundation in every form of art, every form of creativity. There's an emotional foundation in it. So this exercise involves storytelling and imagination. Now, in this exercise, you want to hand over the exercise book to your child, and they will go first so that they understand this exercise. Now, you will tell them to randomly pick any of the 4 emotions. And when they pick the 4 emotions, you, the parent, will tell a story. You will create a story using that emotion as a reference. Now, when I say create a story, you're going to create any story. It could be a fictional story. It could be a story from maybe the Bible, a story from something that happened in history, a story that you just made up. But the major point is that you must hit on the emotion that your child picked. So, for example, if your child picked surprised, you tell a story. Oh, there was a rabbit that was called John. John, he loved carrots so much, and he would hop from one garden to another garden to eat all the carrots in all the gardens. Then one day, a shepherd set a trap for him. Then when he got into that garden, the trap caught his leg, and he was so surprised. So that's how you want to do it. Because that's how you want to do it. It's when you're telling that story, you're giving your child the opportunity to imagine things, and in that imagination, connect it to an emotion. You do that and ensure that they understand this exercise, then you switch. So when you switch, it's now time for you to pick an emotional randomly and for your child to tell a story using that emotion as a reference. Now remember, you've done it already, so they should understand the basics of how it works. So pick an emotion and tell them, tell me a story, create a story using that emotion as a reference. Listen to them and show empathy, laugh about their story, be surprised about their story, be compassionate about their story. So this is a very good time to nurture their imagination. You would start to notice how your child thinks, because now they're just creating stories from their head. They're not reading from a book. They're just creating stories from their head. So it's really nice to see a child who is probably 5-6 years old and he's just creating stories. Like, where did you get the stories from? So it's a really good experience to nurture and to do with your kids. The next is exercise 4. So we've now referred back to the emotions game, but now we included 2 additional emotions. So in this entire exercise book, there are 6 emotions in total. It says like easy, happy, sad, angry, surprised. Then these other 2 emotions, scared and frustrated. Now I put those 2 emotions separate because I noticed that my kids, when they were about 4 or 5 years old, they did not really understand it. So it's something that you should build on as your children or as your child gets to build their emotional vocabulary. So same thing we did for exercise 1, 2, 3, emotions game, tell me about, and tell a story. You should do it for scared and frustrated. That's for exercise 4, 5, and 6. Then the next is magical questions. Now, magical questions are a set of questions. I put about 50 questions. I call them abstract questions that enable conversations to be driven by imagination, creativity, and storytelling. It's a good way to bond with your child on an imagination level, because you are just asking them questions that spark imagination. So it's different from the regular conversations you have in the home, whereby you're just talking about things happening, watching TV, but it's a really good way to spark imagination. So I call that the magical questions. So in this exercise, you should take turns. So there's sometimes you ask your child, sometimes your child asks you and you respond. So you have questions like, if you could change your name, what would you change it to? Now, if you listen to that question allows a child to think deep. I mean, when you were born, you were given a name, you were given a religion, you were given like an identity. But now you're asking a question and telling a 5-6-year-old to change their name and just pick a name. And remember what I said at the beginning of this exercise. You should do it in a space where there's fun, love, compassion, and forgiveness. So this question, whatever answer that they give, you should take it with your full chest. You should be open-minded and forgive where necessary, and be loving. So it's a good way to spark their imagination. You hear different names. Another question, maybe number 2. There are 50 questions here, and the 50 questions. If you wanted to make everyone in the world smile, how would you do it? So this abstract question is a good way for children to spark their imagination, and we'll also ensure that about 70 to 80% of them were emotional based. So if you notice number 2, if you wanted to make everyone in the world smile, the emotion there is happy. How would you do it? Number 3, what makes you feel happy? So it's emotional based. So it's like abstract questions that spark imagination and have like an emotional undertone. So it's a good exercise to do, and there are 50, so it's very fun exercise. So imagine as a child asking a parent a question such as, what has been your worst nightmare? Or what has been the best dream you ever had? So it's a good way to just have really nice conversations with your kids. So that's it for the workbook. It's something that you can do with your kids even without the workbook if you understand the basics. And I advised at the end, I put a note there that as a parent you can build on adding more difficult emotions as you notice your child getting better with their emotional vocabulary. So the idea is to use the framework of the 3 games, the 3 exercises, the emotions game, the tell me about, and the tell a story. So you should use those exercises on harder emotions like jealousy, pride, confusion. So you should disgust. So you should use, tell me about the time you felt disgusted. Tell me a story about when you felt jealous. And again, remember to switch. Your child should also ask you, and you should also respond. So it's a like I said, this exercises is based on conversations, and I plan to create exercise volume 2. It would be more focused on things like journaling, writing from imagination, and some people have asked me that would they stop exercise 1? So would they stop the exercises in volume 1 and move to volume 2? No. Even my kids, I'm sure when they're teenagers, I'll probably be having the same emotional conversations with them. So this exercise 1 is something that would continue probably for life, actually, because it's basic way humans communicate with each other. So exercise 2, volume 1 is something that parents would do for life. So if I release volume 2, it's something that you will just add it into the things you do with your kids. So that's the plan. I hope to create these books that will help parents nurture creativity in their kids and ultimately push the boundaries of human expression going forward. So that's it. I'll put a link in the comment section so you can download it for free and start practicing it. And if you have any feedback, I hope you can reach out to me and shoot me an email or put a comment below on this video. Thank you. Peace.